Hello, this is Paul, and this is my testimony. In this video presentation, I will be going through the different things that I've been studying, reading, and researching for the last, say, 5 years in order to try to figure out what on earth is going on here. Now, most of you should be able to feel that there's something seriously wrong with the world that you live in. You have all these crazy geopolitical events going on. You have terrorists, quote unquote terrorists, the different climate changes that we're being told on the TV, and all of these crazy things that are happening. Now, in this presentation, I will be giving you a 10-point list of the different things that I started to study in 2011, basically. But before that, I want to go through the thoughts that I had before 2011 that I was thinking about and couldn't make any sense of. So that they're called early thoughts in this presentation. Now, before I start, I want to apologize for this video format. I don't do video presentations or video recordings for a living. That's not what I do. I've done this in the form of a PowerPoint. That's the tool that I know. And yeah, and the other thing that I wanted to say is that the reason why I'm doing this is because I've been getting some questions lately from friends, relatives, regarding the different events and how can I say something like that, or why is your view like that? And now most of my relatives are still plugged into the matrix, basically. And they basically believe everything that they see on TV. I'll go into that later, but now I will start this presentation. And also, one more thing that I want to say before I start is that I'm normally not the type of person that if I watch, for example, a documentary or a presentation or whatever it is, I want to have the facts verified first. I do a background check of the person giving the presentation. What did he or she do before? What kind of organization are they affiliated with? And things like that. And then I want to hear different viewpoints, and then I do my own contemplation and own studies before I reach a conclusion regarding something. But I'm going to start with the early thoughts that I had in my life. Basically, I was brought up in a very conservative home. We live in Sweden, which has typically been a socialist country ever since the Second World War. My parents were against socialism, and since the socialists ruled Sweden basically ever since the 50s, being anti-socialist was almost equal to being anti-state. Now, with that said, I never really, that's the kind of upbringing that I had. And furthermore, I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering, and also I've studied economics, so that's just my background, as to know where I'm coming from. But the early questions that I had ever since my late teens were, as you can see on the presentation here, I had some doubts or thoughts regarding the obvious moral decay that we are seeing around in society. Is like people don't know how to dress with respect anymore. The quality of their speech is going down. If you, for example, if we go back, say, 15 years ago, you could open a newspaper and there were a lot of typos and misspellings. That caught my attention, or I thought about it. But let's go through the moral decay. And I mean, this is taken from the US. Did people dress like this, say, 50 years ago? No, they didn't. I mean, something has happened to the society that we're living in. It's almost as if it's cool to be, I'm sorry to say it's stupid. Now, I'm not judging anyone. Maybe these people are very highly intelligent. But if you just look at the appearances, normal people wouldn't dress like this. And the same thing, this is from Europe or Sweden. The TV will show you all kinds of different programs where being stupid or doing foolish things is glorified. And that was a phenomenon that I didn't really understand. It's the same thing. This is Germany. It's the same thing there. People being, being glorified for being stupid, or it just didn't make any sense to me. And this moral decay seems to be spreading all over. That was one of the things that I looked into or didn't understand as a young adult. The other thing that I didn't understand was how people could be so obsessed with vanity and at the same time becoming so obese. Now, I started going to the gym when I was 15 and was very interested in taking care of my body and fitness and everything like that. And then on the other hand, you have this surge in plastic surgery. Now, of course, there are different categories of plastic surgery. Some might be needed, some might be because of obesity, some might be, for example, a nose job that some movie star is not satisfied with his or her nose. Those were the different things that I didn't really understand. What I didn't understand was that do people not understand? I mean, if you eat more than you, from an energy perspective, eat more than you spend, then you become obese. Most people, at least in the West, they have some kind of office job where they don't need to eat as much as before, and that should be common sense. So those were the things, and you can see the graphs here. I picked these up a week ago or something for this presentation, and you can see basically since 2000 in the US, but I guess it's the same pretty much all over the Western world. This is from the left. The graph to the left is from South Korea. You can see that cosmetic surgery is just booming. The other early thought that I had was regarding the debt. Why do people have so much debt nowadays? Don't they understand that? I mean, if you go into debt, that's a sign that you can't afford whatever it is you want to purchase. Being in debt is not good because, I mean, from a logical standpoint, if you go into debt, you will have to pay money for interest and things like and that afterwards. So you're doing yourself a disfavor if you take on debt. It would be better, again, from a material standpoint and a logical standpoint. Wouldn't it be better to postpone expenditures, save first and spend later? So this was a phenomenon that I didn't understand. And this is actually the presentation that you're looking at now, or the slide that you're looking at now, is the different inflation targets that we have. This was a study that I did after 2000 or during 2011. I didn't do this in my early years. Let's say after 18 and up until 33. I was 33. But according to the government, Swedish government, the annual inflation rate shall be 2%. But if you look at the graphs, this is 2% inflation rate. So basically, if you start at 100 at year 1, then after year 4, you'll be at 73. That's over here. So does that match reality? Not if you look at these things. These are some more charts. This is the total amount of money in society according to the Central Bank of Sweden, but this is the 2% gold. So that didn't add up either. I found that very peculiar. And this, yeah, and here are the sources that you can check out for yourself. The other thought that I had was regarding the political system. Now, I was very skeptical to the whole political system, basically, ever since I was 20, because they all say the same thing. They all lie. They can all do mistakes and then confess freely to the media, and then nothing happens to them. But, I mean, if I do a mistake, there will probably be consequences. I mean, a typical example for that is there was some politicians that were actively engaged in fraud, and they just apologized publicly, and then everything was forgiven. They didn't go to prison. They didn't have to pay a fine or anything. But I mean, if I do something wrong, speeding, then yeah, there's a fine. So the political system, I was very skeptical to the political system already. Early on, and I found that very worrying. I would say. One more thing that I didn't understand was the housing market. As a young adult, you need to have some place to live, and one of the things that you probably ask yourself is, why does the housing market always go up? Well, it's because your parents told you that the housing market always goes up. Is that a natural law? Is that so? And I looked into that, and it goes back to the inflation problem. And it's not that the housing market is going up. Well, it is, but there's also the inflation reason, namely that your currency is being worth less and less. Of course, I didn't know that back then, but I was suspicious of it. Then the other things that I had thought about early on in the years was the financial system. It seems like, to me, it was that the taxation system favors people who have a lot of debt and drive cars to work. Why is that so? I mean, if the climate is changing, back then it was called global warming, and we were told that it was because of all the CO2. Of course, that didn't go down very well, so they had to rebrand the global warming to climate change. But anyway, it's a topic for later. Why does the taxation system favor people who have a lot of debt and drive a car to work? Wouldn't it be better to favor people who don't have debt and don't drive a car to work? And regarding the pension system, you have no liberty regarding how you want to save for your pension. For example, if you have the opinion that I want to pay a little bit less tax, and I do not want to take part in the pension system, and I can save for myself for my own pension, that option is not available. You cannot opt out of the pension system. You have to participate in it. That was something that I didn't understand and I wanted to look into. The other thing that I found really bizarre was that most people they don't think about these things. It's almost as they just go on and value that ignorance is bliss, and they don't want to find out about these things. And I mean, of course, I was thinking that, am I the only one that thinks about these things? It didn't make any sense to me. So yeah, those were the early thoughts that I had, and what then led me to continue my studies, or really to look into the whole system, was the fact that my daughter was born in 2010, and then all of a sudden I just couldn't be ignorant of all these things. I mean, what happens if there's another financial crisis and we lose everything? What am I going to tell my daughter? I'm going to tell her that, oh, I didn't know and I wasn't informed, and I mean, I didn't want to be historical roadkill, basically. So that's what triggered my desire to really figure out what is going on here. How does the financial system work? And as you'll see later on in this presentation, once you dig into these things, or one of these things, you uncover a lot of uncomfortable things that I believe everyone should have a look at if they want to figure out what's going on. So okay, this was the first part of this presentation, and yeah, thank you for listening.